Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Boss Rush pre-show. I am your host, Corey Dirrig, and alongside me, as always, is the PC muscle race himself, LeRon Dawkins.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, LeRon.
Hey, Corey.
How's it going?
Something about your vibe seems different.
I'm feeling great right now. I'm feeling great. It's not because of our guests. It's not because of all the cool things happening right now. But I'm feeling good today. You know, sometimes you have those days where you just feel good, LeRon.
Is your great feeling chemically induced?
Don't worry about it. Speaking of chemically induced, also here is my co-host for Tower Casuals, the mayor of the Deepstone Crypt, as we like to say, the God Slayer and the Witness Vanquisher, Josh Finney.
It's been a while. Thank you for having me back.
Of course, Josh. You know you're welcome here. How are you, Josh? I feel like it's been like 3 days since we talked last.
I'm good. It was a busy weekend, but it was a good one. It was a productive one.
Good. That's what I like to hear. Productive. My weekend was not so productive, but sometimes that's okay.
Hey, you need that.
Yeah. Played a lot of weird games with my children, but we'll get into that on the main show. We have a special guest, and Josh, this is partially why you're here. It's because the last time he was here, you were not. But I know you're a big fan of this man's games, just like we all are. The CEO of Something Wicked Games, former producer over at Bethesda, Jeff Gardiner's back on the show. Jeff, welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. Thanks for having me back on again. I've been making games for a really long time. I love talking about games. I pretty much eat, sleep, and live games. In the pitch deck that I got, where I got the funding for my new studio, I have a picture of myself with an Atari 2600, which dates the shit out of me, but it's all true. There you go. I'll share it with you later. You can use that picture of me in the show. There you go.
I also had Atari 2600 at a certain point in my youth.
I too did. My dad brought one home, and we played Kaboom and Combat, and apparently
Combat was the greatest, especially like the freaking the helicopter
Yeah.
scenario. Oh my god.
Yeah, and apparently the bad version of Pac-Man, and
Oh yeah.
The only good thing about Pac-Man or about that Pac-Man was the sound effects. That's the only good thing about that game.
you know, LeRon, I'll let you think that.
I had a Nintendo 64, so
Hey,
Look at this youngin.
that's right. I'm the youngin here tonight.
No,
I had a black and white Game Boy. I am that old. I am old enough to have experienced the black and white Game Boy before Game Boy Color was a thing.
This guy first system's a freaking Nintendo 64. Ain't that cute?
Speaking of black and white Game Boy, I have mine finally complete in box back there.
Jeez.
Very, very excited.
You're not gonna deconstruct it and mount it on your wall?
No. I'll buy some.
I thought that was the thing. I mean, the thing we do.
You know what? Sure. I'm not gonna deconstruct mine. I'm gonna probably buy a broken one off of eBay and figure that out. But
It's already off the rails.
I know. Sorry, Jeff. This is how it goes.
I
Jeff,
started it. It's fine.
For people who may not know who you are, who are you? Why are you important?
Oh, sure. I had the honor of working at Bethesda Game Studios for 16 years. I started I worked in the basement with about 40, maybe 50 folks, and finished up Oblivion. And then worked as the producer in charge of design through Fallout 3 and Skyrim, then the lead producer of Fallout 4, and then project lead of Fallout 76. I used to have to duck when I said that, but these days that game is doing really well, and I'm really proud of it and all the work that's been done since I've left. So that's what I did for a number of years. And then the last 2.5 years I've been at Something Wicked Games.
Awesome. Working on Weird Song.
Weird Song, yes. Working on another RPG we titled Weird Song, which we teased probably way too early, but way back in 2022 at Opening Night Live, the big Opening Night Live the first one post COVID. So there, you can check out the trailer online.
I mean, you got to put yourself out there. You got to get that out there, and you just put new images out on social media also.
Yeah, we leak some I leak screenshots. Everyone, not screenshots. Excuse me, concept art every once in a while. We're going to make a big announcement in the next couple of months. We have some screenshots and other things we're going to release. So there'll be more on that to come very, very soon.
Awesome. Well, Jeff, thanks for hanging out with us tonight. This is a real pleasure.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun.
We are. Speaking of fun, we're going to talk about our games of the year so far, or maybe lack thereof, because as we were talking before we started recording the pre-show, we've all been playing a lot of older games, but we've played a few this year. Jeff, you are our esteemed guest. You mentioned a game that came out this year.
Did I? Yeah. I think it's funny because one of the things we talked about prior to this was how most of my playtime has been trying to finish up the massive backlog of crazy great games that came out last year. So the start of my year, I did a second run of Baldur's Gate 3, which pretty much wrecked me. I put about probably 250 hours in that game total, I think, over the course of just a few months. And then after that, I was like, it's one of those. I don't know if you guys have that sensation where you just try a ton of games and nothing sticks. It's been months of that, but I did. Manor Lords is probably the game that came out this year I've liked the most. I don't know if I would ready to give that game of the year since it's still in early access. The other one I'm playing a lot is Total War Warhammer 3. I'm a big Warhammer nerd. There's a Warhammer shelf here behind me that I literally realized before the podcast is collapsed, and the picture frame below it is holding it up. So it might collapse during the show from those ancient Warhammer books I've got. Anyway, they put out some very good DLC this year after a bunch of controversy towards the end of last year. Michaela's son is one of them. It's a dwarven faction that they put out, and I played a whole long campaign of that. So if I had to pick a DLC of the year, it would be the Total War Warhammer 3 DLC.
Nice. Are you no, I don't know how you say this because I'm not a Warhammer person, but are you like a normal Warhammer person, or are you a 40K person?
Both, but probably more the fan. I grew up on Fantasy Battle. That's mostly what you see up there. So I do Age of Sigmar now because they killed the old world in a fit of madness about 8 years ago. I don't even know. But I do both. So I have Necrons and Thousand Suns for 40K and too many Age of Sigmar. I'm working on Skaven now for Age of Sigmar. So there you go.
I'm looking forward to Space Marine 2, the video game that's coming out soon.
Looking forward to that.
Josh, you're not normally here, and you play a lot of games. You probably have more to talk about than me and LeRon combined, because we stick to old stuff.
Man, I don't know about that. A lot of my time this year has been spent in RPGs. Big surprise, shooters and RPGs is where I spend a lot of my time. This year, probably the two that I've spent the most time in are different takes on beloved games. Of course, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Persona 3 Reload have been the two that I've probably pumped close to 100 hours into both of those games each. My first real run, I don't remember a whole lot of Final Fantasy VII from when I played as a kid, so it's been great getting to go back and play this and not be 7 or 8 years old and get frustrated with turn-based combat. I really, really like the open world nature of the game. I like the twists that both Remake and Rebirth have put onto a timeless story. There's a reason why it's one of the most beloved JRPGs of all time. It's an endearing story. It's an endearing cast. And kind of the reshuffling of things to make the story flow better are these opportunities you get when you go back to a story nearly 30 years later. I can't wait for part 3. Rebirth is definitely in the driver's seat for my game of the year right now. Crossing my fingers that I get a little mini DLC, kind of like we got with Intergrade for Remake. And hoping for that Dirge of Cerberus remake. It's the last Final Fantasy VII game we haven't seen. And then Persona 3 Reload. If you've heard me on any podcast for the last couple of years, I fell down the Persona rabbit hole in late 2022, and I've played them in reverse order now. I went from 5 to 4 to 3. Gearing up for that Persona 3 DLC next month. It has been, it's definitely the oldest one. You can see that it is the foundation of 4 and 5, which I regard as 2 of the greatest games ever made. But 3 definitely, I mean, it's got an incredible cast of characters. And I think if you're going to spend 80 to 100 hours in an RPG, it has to have a lovable main cast, especially when it's not big, sprawling, open world with lots of quests, like kind of like The Witcher 3 or, like a Bethesda title or even Baldur's Gate. Like, it's when it's more narrow and focused, like those core 8 characters really have to be special. And that's something I've enjoyed. So as I've gotten more into reading a lot of manga and watching a lot of anime that I started during COVID, I think these games have kind of endeared themselves a little bit more to me. And I think, again, it's a beautiful way to update a game that I think was a little frustrating for some folks, especially for me. I tried playing the PSP version a couple of years back when it came to consoles, and it was just really, really hard for me to get into. It's very visual novel heavy. They started to make the transition after 3, and to have it play more in the style of Persona 5 Royale was really, really nice to see. It shows that you can have 2 different versions of a beloved game and they still are both totally valid.
Yeah, Persona's it's one of those series.
It's a time commitment.
Yeah, that's.
I laugh whenever my best friend did a lot of hours in Baldur's Gate last year and this year. That's still his most played game this year. I think probably 400 hours across the whole year, and we both laughed because he was like, "Oh, you're never going to get into Persona," and I'm like, "Oh, you're not going to get into Baldur's Gate that much," and now we're both laughing at each other. So
Mm-hmm.
we swapped places. Instead of me playing Baldur's Gate, I play D&D with my friends once a month. So it all kind of equals out.
You gonna do that Baldur's Gate thing soon, Josh?
I need to. I'm currently in the middle of deciding if I'm going to go with full on building a PC or if I'm going to go with a Steam Deck instead. But I've decided that's the only way I'm playing Baldur's Gate is if I get on Steam. I don't want to play it through console. I want to be able to play with my friends who already have, characters, or who can just dip in and out without them having to buy the game another time. So
should get it on Xbox Series S. I hear couch co-op's great on that.
No. Not if my life depended on it.
Oh,
I respect Josh's decision.
Yeah,
I love couch co-op. I don't want something that very clearly is struggling to run on even higher end versions of these consoles on couch co-op. It's a very unique game that I want to be able to experience the way it's meant to be played.
Yeah. I saw that article pop up again, the Baldur's Gate on Series S thing pop up earlier when I was creating a doc for another show, and I was like, oh man, rip.
Here we go again.
Yep, here we go again. Speaking of PC gamer, LeRon.
I feel like the only thing I'm playing on I feel like the only PC games I'm playing that are actually like supposedly new is Tekken 8, and if we want to count Ghost of Tsushima, I'd say that. I feel like it's just August 13th. I feel like it's too early to call a game of the year just yet because this is going to be this month in September a hell month for releases. Tekken 8 best fighting game so far, game of the year, fighting game of the year so far. That because even with Grand Blue Relink and all that stuff, good fun, but I don't know, like Tekken's got my attention. I was also looking at like the 2024 releases that have a 90 a 90 and higher Metacritic score. And I mean, Shadow of the Erdtree is just kicking everybody's ass with a 95. Final Fantasy Rebirth's in 7th place with 92. Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and The Final Shape for Destiny 2 are all tied at 92. Lorelei and the Laser
wild to me.
I know.
Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is a 91. Animal Well, Balatro, and The Last of Us Remastered and Tekken 8 are 90. Are tied for 90. Yeah. So yeah, there we go. So at least I'm playing one highly acclaimed game in this list.
It's fair. I mean, to be fair, you're playing Ghost of Tsushima 2, which came out on PC this year.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, so it is a 2024 release. I can't seem to find where it's rated at in Metacritic right now.
My 2020 game of the year, for the record.
I think it's an at an 89. I think.
Loved it.
It was.
Yeah,
It's the best Assassin's Creed game ever released.
There you
That's
go.
that is true.
everybody.
That is true. That is
Yes.
true. I love this. I love the storytelling and the flow of Ghost of Tsushima. It is a phenomenal game.
It is a love letter to the culture,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
there's an example. I use it as an example of you can tell when a game is great, and generally it means that developers loved it, right? And by this I mean you see this in games and the little details that could easily not be in the game that are there. And the example in Ghost of Tsushima is when you are on the horse and you're going through those tall grasses, and you just randomly lean over and run your fingers through them as you're going, like somebody that was not on a spreadsheet, that was not somebody didn't sit in a meeting and go, you know what we should do? We should spend all this time when, because that is programming and animations, and there's all sorts of things that have to go into that, right? And somebody just goes, I'm going to do this because it's. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yes, okay. I'm just making sure.
Oh yeah,
Because it's
you're
fucking-
welcome.
because it's-
You're welcome to it.
Okay, because it's fucking cool, right?
Mhm.
And they did it because it's fucking cool. And you see this in games that are the real great games. You know, not just highly Metacritic rated games, but you see it. And somebody loved that game, and they just the developers loved it. You can tell, and it's a love letter. It's a game.
Mhm.
A lot
Anyways,
of
that's my spiel on that.
It's funny. I love that LeRon brought up Ghost of Tsushima because my partner and I just finished watching Shogun.
Okay.
And it's so clear. Like I've been going through and reading the book it's based off of now.
The book is very good. Yeah.
That is massive. I thought the Song of Ice and Fire novels were huge. This is bigger than that by like 300 pages.
Oh man.
I could hurt somebody with the paperback version of this. It's in 2 volumes because it's so big in paperback. But reading that was clearly an inspiration. Even though that takes place like 500 years later, you can see like many of the themes from that novel are present in Ghost of Tsushima's story. Because I think it's this amazing story of, it's about a samurai's honor and about the honor of, feudal Japan. And I think to see that play out in a video game is something that like clearly it was a love of the culture. And that it wasn't just, we're going to make a game set in Japan and it's going to be action adventure and this and that. It's no, we're going to study the culture. We're going to study this specific province and we're going to base it on this island and we're going to recreate it to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
Jeff
and it was
mentioned,
fun as hell. And it was fun as hell.
It's fun as hell. Like it's one of the only games I've ever wanted to 100% the open world. Like Jeff mentioned the detail of running your hands through the grass. The title pop in that game is one of the most memorable ever for me because you're galloping through the grass.
Yeah.
After the prologue, and it's just like the music hits you, and oh my god, it's incredible.
Samurai sword flick with a thumb, like there's just so many little, and you see that, and you're like, oh, I'm ready. Here we go.
This guy's like you can turn on Kurosawa mode too. Like it really is like the 7 Samurai video game.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's so fun.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, my boyfriend and I were also watching Shogun. We're on episode 5 now, and this show is blowing me away. I'm pissed that I wasn't watching it. I'm pissed that I wasn't watching it when it was a live television event, but I'm watching it now. So yeah, and Ghost of Tsushima is a pretty game. It's probably gonna be a top 10 of like best games I have ever played in my life at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I got to get on the PlayStation app and download it to my PlayStation right now because that is really one of those. LeRon and I have had this discussion. I don't like the DualSense controller, so I try to avoid it when possible. But this is one of those games that I probably can't do that. Huh?
You need to use your DualSense controller for this. Like
it is one of the few games that I argue for it.
I'm using my DualSense controller to play it on the PC, and yeah, it's fucking great.
Nice.
This and Spider-Man are like the 2 that I really love because the haptics, like I feel like we're gonna keep coming back to this theme tonight of like really loving your craft and to see how those are programmed, like the light trigger pulls or the harder trigger pulls do different things, or affects how quickly you do a motion and this and that. Like you actually feel the strain on the controller. I think that's a really cool feature. It irritated me at first, and I think if it was in every game, it probably would. But for those experiences, they're already good. It takes an already great experience and just elevates it a little bit more.
Yeah.
When it's implemented properly, when it's gimmicky, it is always bad. Yeah.
So I always laugh when things like that are put in. It's just like it kind of reminds me of the Wii. Like the only like really great usage of things like that were the first party teams. And so I always love seeing things like that, but I always wonder like how widespread is this going to get used? Because you have to think about, well, I'm programming it specially for this specific platform. What about if I'm porting it to PC, if I'm porting it to Xbox or the Switch or whatever? Like they don't have those same features.
Yeah, I feel like if the Xbox had controller like those types of controllers, they would probably be used a little bit more than they are now.
Corey, what have you been enjoying? You've
Oh
asked
boy,
all of us.
I know. So I've been enjoying a lot of. I've actually shocked at how great the final shape was for Destiny. I know it's kind of a cop out because it's an expansion, but I'm using it. Josh, you and I do a podcast, a Destiny podcast, and this was probably the most positive we've been on the game since. Well, I guess it started with Into the Light, right? But like, it's probably the most positive we've been in a while.
Yeah, I think it's really hard, I think, because no game has ever really tried to wrap up after 10 years. Like, how do you wrap up 10 years of storytelling? I think, like, World of Warcraft might be the closest, but I mean, that's still ongoing. It just started or is about to start a brand new saga. When I look at we were talking about live service games before we got the camera rolling, and I think, we see so many of them peter out after the initial release, or maybe they get a DLC or two in. Destiny 2, like, not even like the whole Destiny franchise, but like Destiny 2 telling this story since 2017 has just been something really weird to witness. It's been this roller coaster of emotions. Like, oh my god, like we're in a crater. It's like that things are dire. Like even the game direct, Luke Smith came out and talked about it and was like that was a really bleak time for us. We didn't know if our funding was going to get pulled, etc. And then they come back with Forsaken 7 months later, and it's this incredible high, and then you get another valley, and then you get these sustained highs. And I think when you have those, yeah, you get those sustained highs, and it makes, when it dips even a little bit, it makes it harder to swallow, I think, the longer you've been playing. But to stick an impossible landing as best as you could after, they had those horrible layoffs last fall, 100 people lost their jobs last fall, and then the delay happens, and then they deliver just this incredible batch of content between Into the Light and the final shape. They wrap up all these story threads, they give a fitting send off to several beloved characters, and even found an appropriate way to bring back Nathan Fillion's Cade 6. And it all works. It all makes sense. Like that was the thing I was saying during the raid race, watching it with some of our mutual friends. It's like it just works. And this should not work. There are things happening in a first person shooter that I would never dream of putting in. Making shapes by interacting with statues to, like, in a non-combat encounter. Like there is combat, but that's not the focus. Like your character canonically dying during it, like that is, I would never dream of something like that in a storyline. And here they are, and they're like, oh yeah, without that delay, that doesn't happen.
Right.
The best encounter they've ever done doesn't happen without a delay.
Right. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that whole half that story doesn't happen without the delay either.
a 12-man activity that flawlessly worked the minute it was launched at like 7 a.m. Central Time. Yeah, it was great. It was great to witness in real time. I just, again, these things, and like that was born out of a glitch in the game where we were running 12-man raids because we could all join each other.
Right.
And
what a weird time.
I love when I see things like that become part of, like, oh, it was like a you had to be there moment, but we're going to make this a moment for everyone eventually.
Right. Yeah. And then, just kind of wrapping everything up with that final cutscene, right? Like you said, saying goodbye to, beloved characters and kind of introducing new ones to the game. I mean, we've been talking about them in the lore for a while, but like Micah 10 and some of these other characters that have been introduced. It's just
quite literally, like the universe is a blank slate now. So
yeah,
go crazy.
Putting aside what's going on there right now, like they could literally go anywhere at this point. So,
right.
But also I want to shout out Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. It was really good, really really good. Even on Switch, it was really good. Yeah, even on Switch, it was really good. And then I know I'm in the minority here, but I really loved Hellblade 2. you
How
know,
are you in the minority?
I
thought everybody that played Hellblade 2 loved it.
I feel no, not everybody.
I mean, folks. There was a lot of folks that like kind of like said it was like felt like a walking sim, but for the most
I
part,
mean,
like
it is with puzzles and light combat, right? I mean, that's kind of
That's what those games are, though. Yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah.
the first one was. Yeah,
Anybody expecting anything more than a prettier version of the first one was like kind of kidding yourself at this point. Although
I think the issue for like to me personally, I think the issue was the length. It felt like I think it probably would have been received a little bit better, like lengthwise, and like, oh, there's just like minimal combat, and obviously a lot of the people I think critiquing that didn't play the first one, like Corey and Jeff said, like what you're getting into if you play this.
Yeah,
it's kind of an Order 1886 situation for me. Like if you get that out
studio
in the
just
generation. Like maybe that's received a little bit better. Like we're more accepting of, oh, you're trying something new. This is a demo to show the tech and the sound design that you have, because it's impeccable in those regards.
Yeah, and I think this would have been received better if it came out at launch also, or like in that launch window, and not
but
3 years later.
3.5 years and a global pandemic later, here we are.
Yeah, but I really love that game. I played through it twice. I got all the rare 1K for me achievements, although it was not very hard. You just had to find everything.
I think it's the perfect Game Pass game, honestly. It's short. Then you're not as upset about the length of it when it's just something you get part of the subscription. You know what I'm saying? Like that's to me is like that I think Xbox should be doing more of those.
That's my take too. I like that. That's one of the things like I advocate for when we talk about Game Pass is I think from a first party perspective, it allows you to take more risks. Without Game Pass, I think Josh Sawyer talked about this when Pentiment came out. Without Game Pass, you don't get Pentiment. You don't get things like Grounded.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You don't get that, or on Steam, it depends. Like there's a lot of indie games on Steam that have reasonable budgets that set reasonable expectations for sales, right? And are successful with much lower sales because they didn't cost as much, right? The thing is that I guarantee I'd probably get in trouble for saying that somebody at Xbox will probably look at that, go, that game costs how much money? And you know what I'm saying? Like, and that's the problem is they need to find a way to, like back in the day when I started making games, the online stuff was still sort of nascent, right? It was very new. And a lot of games are 7, 8, 10 hours, 12, 15 hours long. I worked on a couple of them, right? And they did very well. But now that there's all this competition for not only dollars, but time, those smaller games can get crushed, especially when they cost a lot of money to make.
The numbers game like really seems to be skewing, I would say, the public gamer's perception of what the value of a game should be.
Yeah, I agree. Like we talked about that. Like I can't tell you how many games on Steam I see people go, I played this game 80 hours and it stinks. Well, listen, I'm not saying that that's not a real feeling, but at the same time, if you especially pay $20 for a game and you get 80 hours out of it,
you spent 80 hours for it, you got your money's worth.
I don't know what. I mean, I don't know what. Like,
what do you want?
There's plenty of other games. Just stop and refund it. Like you can refund games on Steam real easy. hit the button. After an hour, you don't like it, you can stop playing. You really can.
You're allowed.
Not everything needs to be 100-hour Baldur's Gate 3 campaign.
No, I don't think that's sustainable as an industry or for gamers or as an industry. I really don't. Like we're talking about them. Like Baldur's Gate literally crushed me. Like I played it. I just couldn't. Like, I'd look at these games knowing they're like, so I'm playing, we should talk about this in the next segment, but I'm playing another game right now that I put off for a long time because I just couldn't turn on another 100-hour RPG. I'd started it and I was like, I can't do this right now. I need something more, moment to moment.
Yeah. I mean, LeRon and Josh, we talked about this at one point about Uncharted 4 and it was like, that's a great game, but like, it would have been better if it was like 10 hours shorter.
I don't like when they artificially lengthen them either. Yeah, I agree with long combat.
I cannot stand that. I cannot stand that.
No.
I'm like, don't pad the damn game. Just give us the experience. Don't sit there and try to keep us sucked in. Like, and it's especially console games that do that, where they throw content in there just to say, oh, like the PlayStation usage was up by this much, but it was because you threw like 9 extra damn hours in a game that should have ended like at like the end of the third act.
I'm all for the shorter experience games, honestly, because I'll get through more games. Like, if
I
know your game's 10 hours, there's a good chance
is the sweet spot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
give you a few good gaming sessions or a week if you can only play a couple hours a night.
I almost ran around my apartment cheering when Obsidian came out and said Avowed is going to be a 30 to 35 hour RPG.
Yeah,
I was like,
no.
oh, thank God. Thank God, because I played so much Pillars of Eternity when that came out. I can't do
That's one of my most
another.
played games on Steam is those two Pillars of Eternities. Honestly, I have hundreds of hours in both of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, thank God, 30 to 35 hours, I can do this. I can do this. My partner won't be too upset with me for it.
The thing with those turn-based games take forever.
Mhm.
They take forever because every combat encounter takes forever.
It's just like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Jeez. I think that pre-show is a success. More about not games of the year. It's fine.
Are you sure? Are you sure you want to give this one up for free? This should be behind the paywall.
I mean, look, man.
Look what you did, Corey.
I know.
This one should be behind the paywall.
No,
like 30 plus minutes.
We give away one a month. Okay.
This is the one we're giving away. The one with the special guest.
Yeah.
All right.
This is a draw 'em
All
in,
right.
man. It's a draw 'em in. You know.
Lost leader.
Look.
I don't know. I don't know. I kind of know a thing or two about marketing, and I feel like this is the one you actually hang on to.
Look, LeRon. Okay.
This is the perk. This is the perk.
They get plenty of other perks. Okay. Look.
I guarantee you people are gonna be in my mentions today. Well, after they hear this episode, talking about what LeRon's trying to deprive us. Like, well, what's his game here? He's a capitalist.
That's fine. I got a DM today that was pretty not great. So
was it about me?
Nope.
Was it about me?
No.
Oh,
I'll tell you. I'll tell you in between. So
okay.
Everybody, thanks for listening to this Boss Rush pre-show, and we'll see you on the main show. If you want to see how you can become a Patreon producer, head on over to patreon.com/BossRushNetwork. The Patreon producers for this month are Adriel Munger, Austin Campbell, Celeste Roberts, Christian S., Sana Dierig, Francisco Santillan, Matthew Keel, and Todd Oxtra. Thanks for your continued support of the Boss Rush Network.